welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into the philosophy of Chuang Tzu. He's a thinker who, well, he really challenged conventions and encouraged us to see the world in a whole new light.
Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and to get into it, we've got excerpts from the book Chuang Tzu itself.
You know, it's not your typical philosophical text. It's really more like a collection of stories and anecdotes.
Kind of like a philosophical mixtape.
Exactly.
So are you ready to question everything you thought you knew? About life, the universe, and everything?
I think so. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's go. What I think is fascinating about Chuang Tzu is that he uses these stories to get us thinking, right? Really thinking about how we live.
Yeah. And especially how we live compared to, the societal structures that Confucianism emphasizes.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can see that contrast from the very beginning. Like there's that story where Chuang Tzu is offered a super high-ranking government position, and he basically says, "No thanks, I'd rather just chill in the mud." It's like, can you imagine turning that down today?
No way.
I mean, it makes you think, what did he see that maybe everybody else missed?
Well, he was definitely a free spirit, that's for sure. But it's more than just, being a rebel. Chuang Tzu was really focused on aligning with the Tao.
With the Tao, right?
Yeah, the natural way of things. And he really felt like a lot of those societal structures were getting in the way, getting in the way of that.
Yeah.
He thought true freedom came from understanding and following the Tao.
Okay, so that's where things start to get a little mind-bending, right?
Yeah.
Because the Tao, it's not something you can just define.
Yeah.
It's more of an underlying principle, a flow that kind of connects everything.
Right. It's not about rules.
No.
It's more about, a rhythm, a deeper rhythm. Think of it like, have you ever tried to force something to happen?
Oh, yeah.
And it just felt like you were, swimming upstream.
Yes.
But then when you let go and just went with the flow, everything just kind of fell into place effortlessly.
Yes. That's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I feel like I do that all the time, like I try to control everything and make it fit this plan that I have. And then life throws a curveball and I'm back to square one.
Chuang Tzu would say that's because you're trying to impose your will on the Tao instead of working with it. He thought that real mastery comes from understanding that natural flow.
Okay, so how do we even start to do that? The Tao sounds pretty mysterious, pretty elusive.
Well, one way is through those stories. Remember that story about Chuang Tzu drumming and singing after his wife died?
Oh, yeah.
People thought he was being really disrespectful, but to him, it was about accepting those natural cycles of life and death.
Yeah.
Not getting caught up in, the emotions that society tells us to feel.
Right, like there's a right way to grieve. It's such a powerful example. He's like, grief is just a part of life. Let's not, suppress it or pretend it's not there.
Totally. It's about just being present with whatever happens without judgment.
Right.
Or resistance.
Yeah.
And that leads to another important point, I think. We need to challenge those societal structures that try to, impose a really limited view of the world.
Yeah, that's so true. Like the expectations of how we should grieve or what success is supposed to look like.
Right.
Chuang Tzu he had a way of flipping those expectations upside down.
He did, and he used humor and paradox to kind of drive home that point. Like the famous butterfly passage.
Oh, right.
He talks about not knowing, if he was a man dreaming he was a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming he was a man.
Yeah.
It's a mind-bending story that makes you question reality.
Yeah, that one stuck with me. It's like he's saying, what if everything you think you know is just a dream? It makes you wonder what else we're taking for granted.
I think that's the point. And that questioning leads us to those critiques of societal structures that you mentioned, that questioning of reality, of fixed perspectives. Remember the story of Po Lo, the horse trainer?
Yeah, the one where he's trying to train these horses to be perfect.
Uh-huh.
And in the process, he makes them weaker.
Yeah.
So what was the point of that story? What was he getting at?
Well, Polo was considered a master horse trainer,
Right.
but he was trying to force these horses into a specific mold. And Chuang Tzu uses the story to show how that kind of control, even with good intentions, can actually be more harmful than good. It's like fitting a square peg into a round hole.
So instead of trying to control, we should be looking for those natural strengths.
Exactly.
That are already there.
Exactly.
Kind of like working with the grain and not against it.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of te comes in.
Te.
Yeah, it's often translated as virtue or power, but it's not the kind of power that comes from dominating other people.
Yeah.
It's the power that comes from aligning with the Tao, with, expressing your true nature.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand. So if the Tao is like this underlying flow of the universe, then Te is how that flow expresses itself.
Right.
Uniquely. And each of us, it's like everyone has their own song.
Beautiful.
Their own song to sing.
Yeah, and for Chuang Tzu, the key to a fulfilling life was to discover and express your own unique Te, your own way of being in harmony with the Tao.
So how do we figure that out? What our Te is?
Yeah.
I mean, is it like this hidden talent?
It's not so much about uncovering a hidden talent, but more about recognizing the value in who you already are, even the parts of yourself that society might call, flaws or imperfections.
That's a really interesting idea. So it's not about changing ourselves to fit some standard.
No.
It's about embracing our uniqueness.
Yes.
And finding our place.
Yes.
In the world.
And that brings us to one of the most challenging aspects of Chuang Tzu's philosophy. His critique of language.
Yeah.
Of knowledge itself.
Wait, what's wrong with language?
Yeah.
And knowledge? Do we need those to understand the world?
Well, of course we do. But Chuang Tzu argued that they can also limit us.
Limit us? How?
Well, limit our understanding of the Tao, which is ultimately beyond words.
Okay.
Beyond concepts. Think about it. Have you ever had an experience that was just so profound, so moving that words just they weren't enough?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to describe a sunset.
Yes.
Or the feeling of awe when you look up at the night sky. Words just don't do it justice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what he was getting at. He believed that clinging to definitions and categories can really prevent us from experiencing the fullness of the world.
Okay, I see. So it's not that language is bad. It's just we shouldn't let it limit our understanding.
That's it.
Of the Tao.
It's about recognizing the limits of our mental constructs and being open to the mystery, to the wonder that lies beyond.
Wow. That's really making me think. We're so used to trying to explain everything, right? To put it all into these little boxes, but maybe that's what's preventing us from really experiencing the Tao.
Chuang Tzu would say that true understanding doesn't come from, dissecting the world with our minds,
right,
but from experiencing it directly with our hearts. He illustrates this beautifully in the story of Master Chi.
Oh yeah.
Explaining the pipes of earth, and the pipes of heaven to master you. It's a complex story, but the point is that everything has its own unique expression, its own way of resonating with the Tao.
So everything is connected but also individual.
Yeah.
Like every instrument in an orchestra, they all contribute to the harmony.
Yeah.
But they each have their own sound.
That's a great analogy. And that's the beauty of Chuang Tzu's philosophy. It encourages us to see, the interconnectedness of it all.
Right.
But also appreciate the uniqueness of each individual expression.
I love that. This is so fascinating. But I have to admit, I'm also a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's like everything I thought I knew about the world, it's all being challenged.
And that's a good thing.
Right.
It's when we start to question those assumptions that we can really grow. Chuang Tzu's philosophy it's not about giving you the answers.
Right.
It's about helping you ask better questions.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. So we've talked about the Tao, about Te, about the limits of language and the importance of questioning societal structures. What else is there? What else should we explore in Chuang Tzu's world?
Well, one of his most important concepts is this idea of finding harmony finding harmony in imperfection.
Okay.
He believed that true peace and freedom, they come from accepting ourselves and accepting the world.
Accepting the world.
As they are, with all the flaws and contradictions. And one of the best stories that illustrates this idea is the one about Cook Ting.
Cook Ting, yeah. The one where he's like slicing up an ox, and it's like art.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
It is.
I'm curious though, what does butchering an ox have to do with finding harmony in imperfection?
Well, it's not about the butchering itself. It's about Cook Ting's approach.
Oh.
He's not hacking and slashing. He's moving with the natural structure of the ox, finding the spaces between the joints, just letting his knife glide effortlessly through. It's almost like a dance.
Yeah, I love that. So it's like instead of fighting against the natural order,
yeah,
he's working with it.
He's found that sweet spot between effort and ease, and the Lord who's watching him he's amazed. He's like, how did you get so good at this? And Cook Ting basically says, well, I've gone beyond just seeing the ox. I'm understanding it on a deeper level, almost becoming one with it.
That's incredible. Now you might be thinking, what does butchering an ox have to do with me? But think about a skill that you're trying to master.
Yeah.
Are you forcing it, or are you working with the natural flow?
Yeah, good question. It's
a good thing to think about, and it applies to so much more than just skills, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's our attitude toward life itself.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead of trying to force things to be a certain way, we embraced the imperfections, the unexpected, as a part of the beauty of it all.
I think that's a powerful shift in perspective. It's like, instead of seeing challenges as obstacles,
right,
we can see them as opportunities for growth, for
right,
learning.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another key element, I think, of Chuang Tzu's philosophy, the importance of self-cultivation.
So cultivation. So it's not just about letting go and going with the flow. There's also an inner work involved. What does that look like?
Well, it's not about, following rules or achieving a certain goal. It's more about cultivating inner peace, cultivating wisdom.
Right.
And compassion,
right,
through things like meditation, reflection, and just living in accordance with the Tao.
So it's about working on ourselves from the inside out.
Exactly. Remember that story where Confucius is advising a ruler?
Oh yeah.
Who wants to help his people.
Right.
He wants to fix things in his kingdom, and Confucius says, hold on a second, before you try to fix the world, make sure you're not the one who's broken.
I love that. It's like that classic saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. Right? You have to cultivate your own inner resources before you can really help other people.
Exactly. And that inner cultivation, it leads to a state of being that Chuang Tzu calls the true man.
the true man. Does that mean women can't achieve this?
Not at all. It's not about gender. It's more like an archetype.
Okay.
A description of someone who's fully aligned with the Tao.
Okay, that makes more sense. So what are some of the qualities of this true man? Is it like a super Zen master, like meditating on a mountaintop?
Well, there's definitely a sense of tranquility, of detachment. Mm-hmm. Chuang Tzu describes the true man as someone who, sleeps without dreams, breathes deeply from their core, and accepts life and death without resistance.
Wow, that sounds incredibly peaceful, but also pretty hard to achieve. I mean, are there any real life examples of people like this? Yeah. People who embody this way of being?
He offers a couple of intriguing stories that hint at that possibility. One is about Nanpo Tsukui.
Okay.
Who, he maintains a youthful appearance.
Okay.
Despite his age, by studying the Tao.
Okay, sign me up. Eternal youth, I'll take it.
It's not about, superficial youthfulness.
Okay.
It's more about an inner vitality and harmony that kind of radiates outwards. And another fascinating story is about Hu Tzu, who is actually able to shift his appearance to reflect different aspects of the Tao.
Like shape-shifting.
It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
Yeah, it does.
But but these stories aren't meant to be taken literally.
Right. Okay.
They're metaphors.
Okay.
For what's possible when we truly align ourselves with the Tao.
I see. Okay. I'm starting to see how these stories work. They're not just, entertaining tales.
No.
They're pointing us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves, of the universe.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important aspect of Chuang Tzu's philosophy, the futility of artificial distinctions.
You mean like social hierarchies and wealth and status, all that stuff that society tends to obsess over?
Yes. Chuang Tzu just saw these distinctions as ultimately meaningless.
Okay.
Even harmful. He uses a really striking example of webbed toes.
Webbed toes.
And extra fingers to make his point.
Sorry?
He's making this point that society often labels things as good or bad.
Right.
Based on totally arbitrary standards. We might see webbed toes as a deformity.
Right.
But from the perspective of the Tao, it's just a variation.
Yeah.
It's a natural expression. It's like who are we to judge what's normal, what's abnormal?
So it's about questioning those judgments.
Yeah.
Recognizing that everything has inherent worth.
That's right. He even argues that things like benevolence and righteousness, which we think of as virtues, they can actually be harmful.
Powerful.
If they're not grounded in a true understanding of the Tao.
Wow.
It's like trying to force everyone to be the same instead of appreciating their unique qualities.
Yeah, I see.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to see how radical Chuang Tzu's thinking really was. He's like turning our whole worldview upside down.
He definitely challenges us to think differently. And this leads us to one of his most influential concepts. The idea of actionless action or Wu Wei.
Wu Wei, right? The art of effortless effort. I've heard of this, but it always felt a little paradoxical. I mean, how can you have action without action?
It's a tricky concept, but think of it as allowing things to unfold naturally.
Okay.
Without forceful intervention. It's about working with the flow of the Tao rather than trying to, control it, manipulate it. Like when you're swimming with the current, not against it. It takes less effort. But you still get where you need to go. Okay.
That analogy makes sense. So it's not about being passive. It's about acting in a way that's aligned with the natural order. But how do we know? How do we know when we're forcing things and when we're acting in accordance with the Tao?
That's where the real work comes in. It's about cultivating a sensitivity, an inner awareness that allows you to discern the right course of action in each moment. It's not always easy, but the more we practice aligning ourselves with the Tao, the more effortless it becomes.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like it takes a lot of trust too.
Yes.
Like trust in ourselves, trust in the process.
Trust in the Tao.
Right, trust in the Tao.
And that trust can be cultivated through practices like meditation and mindfulness. And spending time in nature. The more we connect with the natural world, the more we start to understand those rhythms, the cycles that govern all of life.
So it's not just about, reading about the Tao. It's about experiencing it.
Yeah.
Directly.
Yeah.
In our life.
That's the key. Chuang Tzu, he wouldn't want us to get bogged down in intellectual debates. He'd want us to go out and live.
Yeah.
And live in a way that embodies the principles he taught.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling inspired to do that. But before we go too far down that path, I want to go back to that idea of actionless action for a moment.
Sure.
Chuang Tzu, he tells this great story about Yun Qing,
right? Who
learns about the interconnectedness of everything and the importance of harmonizing what he calls the 6 breaths.
He learns to harmonize these 6 breaths to bring life to all things. It's a metaphor for understanding how these different forces, different energies are at play in the universe,
right?
And how we can work with them to create balance, to create harmony.
So it's not about controlling them, but about finding that sweet spot where everything flows.
Exactly. It's like being a conductor of an orchestra. You're not playing all the instruments, but you're guiding. You're guiding the overall flow of the music, allowing each instrument to shine in its own way.
Oh, that's such a beautiful image, and I think it ties in nicely with that story about Tzu Kung and witnessing the old man struggling to water his fields.
Tzu Kung, he's the efficiency expert, and he thinks he's got a better way with all these family tools and techniques. But the old man, he teaches him a valuable lesson, about the importance of staying connected to those natural rhythms of life.
It's like those modern solutions can actually take us further away from what's truly important. We get so caught up in trying to make things easier and faster and more efficient that we lose sight of the simple joys of being present.
Yeah.
Of just being in the moment.
Yeah. It's like we've forgotten how to just be. And Chuang Tzu, he's reminding us that true peace, true fulfillment, it doesn't come from striving or achieving. It comes from accepting what is and finding joy in the simplicity of existence.
This is all so insightful, but I have to admit I'm also feeling a little challenged. How do we live in the world with all its demands and expectations and also embrace this philosophy of effortless effort and acceptance?
That's the $1 million question, and one that Chuang Tzu doesn't give easy answers for.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about finding the perfect formula for living, but about embracing the journey.
Yeah.
Embracing the journey itself with all the ups and downs, and trusting that the Tao will guide us along the way.
Maybe that's where the trust comes in again. Trusting that even though we don't have all the answers, we're exactly where we need to be in this moment.
Exactly. And that's a pretty liberating thought.
It is. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't have to have it all. I don't have to have it all figured out. I can just relax.
Yeah.
Relax into the flow and see where it takes me.
Who knows what amazing adventures await us along the way.
I'm excited to find out.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away, I think we should take a step back and reflect on what we've learned so far.
That's a great idea. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Chuang Tzu's philosophy. It's rich.
Yeah.
It's complex.
Yeah.
It's a tapestry of ideas that could take a lifetime to really, really grasp.
It could. But even just getting this glimpse, it's been incredibly eye-opening. It's like he's offering a whole new way of seeing the world, of seeing ourselves and our place in everything.
And maybe, just maybe, that new way of seeing can help us create a more harmonious and fulfilling life for ourselves. Yeah.
And for everyone around us.
I love that thought. So for everyone listening, just take a moment to reflect on what's resonated with you so far.
Yeah.
What are some of those key takeaways you're getting from this deep dive into Chuang Tzu's world? How can you start to apply these ideas to your own life?
They're good questions to think about. Chuang Tzu's philosophy isn't about finding the right answers. It's about asking the right questions.
And sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. So keep asking, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper. Keep diving deeper into the mystery of the Tao. So, we've been unpacking some pretty profound concepts here. Before we move on, I want to kind of circle back to this idea of artificial distinctions. It really ties in, I think, with what we were just discussing about embracing imperfection and finding that natural flow.
Yeah, it's interesting because those artificial distinctions, I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like we're constantly judging judging ourselves and other people based on things like wealth or status or even just appearances. And I'm definitely guilty of that.
We all are, I think, to some extent. It's so ingrained in our culture.
It is.
But Chuang Tzu would say, those distinctions are meaningless.
Meaningless. Yeah.
Remember that example we talked about, the webbed toes and the extra fingers?
Oh yeah. That one really stuck with me. It made me realize how quick we are to label things as good or bad, based on these totally random standards.
Exactly. And he takes it even further. You know, he argues that even things like benevolence and righteousness,
which we think of as good,
which we see as virtues, they can be harmful. If they're not grounded in a true understanding of the Tao.
Okay, that's kind of mind-blowing. So you're saying that even trying to be good can backfire if we're not aligned with the natural order of things.
Think about it this way. Have you ever felt pressured to be someone you're not? To fit in, with a certain group or live up to someone else's expectations.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Maybe you even sacrifice parts of yourself in the process.
Yeah. I mean, I remember back in college, I felt like I had to be this super achiever, like always on top of my game.
Yeah.
And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wasn't even that happy.
That's a perfect example of how those artificial distinctions can lead us astray. We end up chasing these external markers of success instead of following our own true path. And Chuang Tzu would say that's a recipe for unhappiness.
It is. So how do we break free from that?
Yeah.
From that trap? How do we learn to value ourselves for who we are, not for what we think society says we should be?
That's where the inner work comes in. It's about cultivating, that deep sense of self-acceptance that allows us to see through those artificial distinctions. It's about recognizing that our true worth comes not from what we achieve or accumulate, but from simply being.
Right.
From simply being who we are.
Easier said than done, though, right? I mean, we're constantly being bombarded with these messages telling us we need to be more, do more, have more.
It's a constant battle. It is. But the more we connect with the Tao, with that deeper source of wisdom, of peace within ourselves, the less power those external influences have over us.
So it's about finding that center, finding that grounding force that allows us to weather the storms of life without getting swept away.
Exactly. And one of the practices that Chuang Tzu recommends for cultivating that inner strength is actionless action or Wu Wei.
Right, Wu Wei. We talked about this a bit earlier, but it's such a central concept. I think it's worth revisiting.
It is.
So Wu Wei, actionless action. It still sounds like a paradox to me. I mean, how can you act without acting?
Imagine you're a gardener. You can't force a plant to grow.
Right.
You provide the right conditions, the sunlight, the water, the nutrients. But ultimately the plant grows. The plant grows on its own.
So it's about creating the right environment for things to unfold naturally.
Yes.
Without trying to control the outcome.
Exactly. It's about working in harmony with the natural forces around us, rather than trying to impose our will upon them. And
I see how this ties in with the story of Cook Ting. He's not forcing the knife through the ox. He's letting it flow along the natural lines. The lines of the animal.
Exactly. He's found that effortless flow that comes from aligning with the Tao.
Right.
And Chuang Tzu would say, that same principle applies to all aspects of life.
To everything. Yeah.
To everything.
So how do we know when we're acting in accordance with Wu Wei and when we're forcing it? I mean, what's the difference between effortless effort and just plain old effort?
It's a subtle distinction, and it takes practice to discern.
Yeah.
But one clue, I think, is the feeling you get. when you're acting?
Right.
Does it feel like you're swimming upstream, like you're struggling against the current, or does it feel like you're gliding effortlessly?
Yeah.
Effortlessly along with the flow.
I love that. It's like that feeling of being in the zone.
Yes.
When everything just clicks.
Exactly. And that's the state that Chuang Tzu is encouraging us to cultivate through Wu Wei. It's not about being passive. It's about finding that sweet spot where our actions are aligned with the natural order.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about doing nothing.
Right.
It's about acting in a way that's effortless.
Yeah.
Harmonious.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put that into practice? I mean, in our everyday lives.
That's where the rubber meets the road. And it's not something I can, give you a step-by-step formula for. It's more about cultivating a mindset.
Yeah.
A way of being. A way of being in the world.
A way of being.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give us some examples?
Sure.
Like how would someone approach their work, their relationships, their daily life?
Yeah.
With this attitude.
Well, let's take work for example.
Okay.
Imagine you're facing a really challenging project.
Yep.
Instead of getting stressed out and trying to force a solution, you could take a step back, breathe deeply, and try to see the situation with fresh eyes. You might even ask yourself, what's the Tao of this project? What's the natural flow that I need to align with?
That's interesting. So it's about finding that sense of ease, that flow,
Yeah.
even in the middle of challenges.
Exactly. And in relationships, Wu Wei might look like letting go of the need to control, to change the other person.
Right.
It's about accepting them for who they are, and allowing the relationship to unfold naturally.
So it's about finding that balance between effort and acceptance, between taking action and letting go.
That's the essence of Wu Wei. It's a dance. It's a constant interplay between these two forces, and the more we practice, the more graceful we become.
That's beautiful. It sounds like a lifelong journey, a journey of self-discovery, and a journey of aligning ourselves with the Tao.
It is, and the beauty of it is that there's no end point.
Right.
It's a process of continual unfolding, of growth and transformation.
That's actually quite comforting. It takes the pressure off,
Yeah.
To achieve some kind of perfect state of enlightenment. It's just about being present.
Yeah.
In each moment, and doing our best to align with the Tao.
And trusting that the Tao will guide us.
Yeah.
Remember that story about Tse and witnessing the old man watering his field?
Yeah, the one where Tsukung thinks he thinks he has a better way.
Yeah.
With all his fancy technology.
Uh-huh. That story is a great reminder that sometimes the simplest way, the most natural way is the best way.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in trying to improve things, to make things easier, that we lose touch with the inherent wisdom of nature.
It's like we're always trying to outsmart nature.
Yeah.
Instead of working with it.
Exactly. And Chuang Tzu would say, that's a recipe for disaster. The more we try to control, to manipulate the natural world, the more out of balance we become.
So what's the antidote to that? How do we get back into alignment with the Tao?
One way I think is through spending time in nature.
Yeah.
When we immerse ourselves in the natural world, we start to remember that we're part of something bigger. We begin to feel that sense of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Of belonging that we've lost touch with in our modern lives.
Right. So it's not just about going for a hike or admiring a pretty sunset. It's about It's about really, really connecting with nature on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about feeling the earth. Feeling the earth beneath our feet, the wind on our skin, the sun on our face. It's about listening to the bird song, watching the clouds drift by, noticing the subtle changes in the seasons. It's about remembering that we're part of this vast interconnected web of life.
And when we remember that, we naturally start to act in a more harmonious way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like our whole being just shifts into alignment with the Tao.
Right.
We become less focused on ourselves.
Yeah.
Less concerned with our own little dramas, and more open to the beauty, to the wonder of the world around us.
That's such a beautiful vision. But how do we bring that sense of peace, that sense of harmony, back into our everyday lives?
Yeah.
Especially when we're faced with challenges.
That's where the real work begins. It's about integrating these principles into every aspect of our lives, from the way we work to the way we relate.
Right.
To the way we relate to others.
So it's not about escaping from the world. It's about transforming our relationship with it.
Exactly. It's about finding that sense of peace and flow, even in the midst of chaos.
I think that's what resonates with me most.
Yeah.
About Chuang Tzu's philosophy. It's not about denying the challenges of life. It's about finding a way to navigate them with grace, with ease,
and perhaps even with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Remember Chuang Tzu was a master of paradox and wordplay. He didn't take himself too seriously, no. and he didn't expect us to either.
Yeah, that's something I really admire about him. He doesn't come across as this preachy, this dogmatic figure. He's more like a wise, playful friend.
Yeah.
Who's just inviting us to see the world in a new way.
Exactly. He's like, hey, come on, let's have some fun with this. Let's question everything. Let's turn things upside down. Let's see what happens when we let go of our preconceived notions and just embrace the mystery. Embrace the mystery of life.
I'm up for that.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all this fun and playfulness, I think it's important to acknowledge that Chuang Tzu's philosophy, it can be pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging to grasp, let alone put into practice.
It is. It's not something you can just read about and instantly understand. It's a journey. It's a journey of exploration and self-discovery, and it takes time.
Right.
It takes patience, and it takes a willingness to let go of our old ways of thinking.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who's feeling a little overwhelmed, what advice would you give them? Like, how can we start to integrate these ideas into our everyday lives?
Well, I wouldn't try to tackle it all at once. Maybe just choose one concept that resonates with you. Yeah. And just start experimenting with it.
Okay.
See how it feels to approach your work or your relationships with a sense of wu wei, for example, or try spending more time in nature.
Right.
And noticing how it affects you, how it affects your mood, your outlook on life.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's like taking small steps on a long journey, and the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Exactly. It's all about the process. The unfolding, the becoming.
The becoming. And who knows what amazing discoveries we'll make along the way.
That's the beauty of it. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
And we're all invited. We're all invited to participate.
We are. Speaking of adventures, remember that story about Man Po Tzu Kui, who maintains this youthful youthful appearance.
Yeah, the quest for eternal youth.
By studying the Tao.
Yeah, it's a universal human desire, isn't it?
It is. I'd love to know his secret.
Well, I don't think it's about, finding some magical potion or
Right.
or elixir.
Right.
It's more about cultivating that inner harmony,
Yeah.
and vitality and vitality that radiates outwards. It's about finding that deep sense of peace,
Right.
and contentment that comes from aligning ourselves with the Tao.
So it's not about erasing wrinkles or dyeing our hair. It's about finding that inner glow that comes from living in accordance with our true nature.
Exactly. And that kind of youthfulness is ageless. It has nothing to do with how old we are, and everything to do with how connected we are to the source of life within ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. It's like true beauty doesn't come from trying to conform to some external standard, but from embracing our own unique individuality.
And that uniqueness is something to be celebrated. Remember Chuang Tzu's message?
Yeah.
About the futility of artificial distinctions. He's reminding us that there's no one right way to be.
Right.
No one perfect mold to fit into.
It's about finding our own unique way.
Yes.
Our own unique way of expressing the Tao. Our own song.
Our own song.
Our own song to sing.
And when we do that, we not only create a more harmonious, a more fulfilling life, for ourselves, but we also contribute to the beauty, to the diversity of the world around us.
Yeah. So we're not just individuals on separate journeys.
Mm-hmm.
We're all part of this grand orchestra.
Yes.
Each playing our own unique part in this symphony, of life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And Chuang Tzu would say, the conductor of this orchestra is the Tao itself, guiding us all towards harmony and towards wholeness.
I'm starting to see how all these different pieces of Chuang Tzu's philosophy, they fit together. It's like a giant puzzle.
Yeah.
And each concept is a piece that helps us see the bigger picture.
And the more pieces we put together, the more awe-inspiring the picture becomes.
It does. This has been such an incredible journey so far. But I have a feeling there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so many more stories.
Yeah.
So many more insights waiting to be discovered.
So for everyone listening, we encourage you to keep diving deeper.
Yes.
To keep questioning.
To keep exploring.
And to keep exploring the richness and depth of Chuang Tzu's philosophy. And we'll be back after a quick break to continue our exploration. To continue our exploration together, it's really been quite a journey exploring this world of Chuang Tzu. So much of what he was talking about just feels so relevant today. Even though he lived thousands of years ago.
Yeah, his insights they're really timeless. Like he tapped into something fundamental about human nature, about the universe that goes beyond time and culture.
Totally. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are some of the key takeaways that you hope our listeners will walk away with?
For me, one of the most powerful messages is this idea of embracing uncertainty. Embracing paradox. I mean, we live in a world that's always trying to put things in these neat little boxes. To find simple explanations for things that are actually really complex. But Chuang Tzu is reminding us that the universe, it's messy.
It is.
It's mysterious, and sometimes the most profound truths are in those gray areas. Where things don't quite add up.
Right. That reminds me of that story about the debate, where neither person can really prove they're right. It's like you're saying, maybe there isn't always, one right answer.
Exactly.
Maybe it's okay to hold multiple perspectives and be okay with the mystery, with the not knowing.
I think that's a very liberating thought, especially today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're bombarded with information, with opinions, and it's like, okay, I don't have to have all the answers.
You don't.
I can just be curious,
Right?
Be open-minded, and be willing to learn and grow.
I think that's one of the things I appreciate most about Chuang Tzu.
Yeah.
He's encouraging us to question those assumptions, to challenge our beliefs, to be open to new perspectives.
Yeah.
It's not about, dogma or rigid rules. It's about a way of being that's flexible, that's adaptable.
Yes.
That's constantly evolving.
And that ties in, I think, so beautifully with another key takeaway. The idea that true knowledge doesn't just come from intellectual understanding.
Right.
It comes from direct experience.
Right.
It's like that saying, you can't learn to swim by reading a book.
Right. Got to jump in.
You got to jump in the water. You got to feel the water on your skin.
Yeah.
The currents pulling you. The buoyancy.
Yeah.
The buoyancy supporting you.
It's about engaging with life fully.
Yes.
With all our senses, with our hearts, as well as our minds.
And that can be scary.
It can,
because it means letting go of control.
Right.
Being willing to get messy.
Yeah.
To make mistakes. To be vulnerable.
It is.
But it's also where the real magic happens. It's in those moments of vulnerability, of surrender, that we truly connect with the Tao, connect with the flow of life itself.
I love that. And that brings us to another key takeaway that we've kind of woven throughout this entire deep dive: the importance of finding harmony. Finding harmony in imperfection. Chuang Tzu is reminding us that the world's not perfect. We're not perfect. And that's okay.
Yes.
In fact, it's more than okay. It's what makes life interesting. It's what makes it beautiful and full of potential.
Think about a piece of pottery. It's the imperfections, the cracks, the crevices that give it character.
Yeah.
That make it unique. And it's the same. It's the same with us. It's our flaws, our quirks, our vulnerabilities that make us who we are. It's what makes us human.
And it's those imperfections that often hold our greatest strengths. Remember the story of the useless tree that's allowed to flourish because it doesn't fit the mold.
Yes.
Maybe it's those parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we try to hide.
Yeah.
Or suppress, that actually hold the key to our true potential.
What a powerful thought. And that's what Chuang Tzu is inviting us to explore. He's not saying we should just give up and accept, mediocrity. He's saying, hey, let's look at those parts. Let's look at those parts of ourselves, the parts that we've rejected, the parts we've labeled as bad, and see what happens when we embrace them.
Yeah.
When we integrate them into our wholeness.
It's like turning our weaknesses into strength.
Yes.
Our flaws into beauty marks. It's about recognizing that everything has its place. It has its purpose. It has its value in the grand scheme of things.
And that's where true freedom lies. Not in trying to be perfect, but in embracing our imperfections.
Right.
And finding harmony within.
Yeah.
And harmony with the world around us.
It's about aligning ourselves with the Tao.
Yeah.
With that natural flow of life.
Yes.
That's always guiding us. That's always supporting us and leading us toward wholeness.
And sometimes the best way to align with that flow is to simply let go.
Let go.
Surrender to the mystery.
Yeah.
And trust that the Tao knows what it's doing.
What a beautiful way to to sum it all up. So for everyone listening, we invite you to take these insights into your heart. Let them simmer. See how they resonate with your own experience. And remember the journey of understanding Chuang Tzu is ongoing. So be patient with yourself, be curious, and most importantly, have fun with it.
And who knows? Maybe you'll discover that the journey itself is the destination.
That's a beautiful thought. That's a beautiful thought to leave us with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Chuang Tzu. Until next time, keep diving.